Hey there, I'm Sakina, founder and CEO of Neurohack Coaching. Today, I'm going to walk you through the Cognitive Edge Framework, a neuroscience informed approach to helping senior leaders think clearly, make better decisions, and lead effectively even when they're under pressure. Over the past 8 years, I've worked with over 500 leaders and executives across organizations like Salesforce, Accenture, Deloitte, PwC, Glean, Square, and many others. And everything I'm going to share with you is grounded in real world application, not just theory. But before I walk you through the framework, let me give you a bit of context. I've spent over 20 years working in high pressure environments, starting as an individual contributor and eventually moving into the C suite. I've worked across organizations of all sizes, from early stage startups to large multinational companies. Most recently, I was Chief Revenue Officer and Chief Marketing Officer at an AI company. And from the outside, things looked like they were going well. I was progressing in my career, taking on bigger roles, more responsibility, but behind the scenes, it felt very different. I was constantly switching between decisions, dealing with pressure from all directions, and carrying the weight of outcomes that really mattered. And what I realized was this: it wasn't the work itself that was the hardest part, it was the mental overload, the overthinking, the second guessing, the imposter syndrome, the constant feeling of needing to be on. And that's when something clicked. The challenge wasn't capability. I had the experience, I had the skills. The real challenge was how I was thinking under pressure, how I was showing up as a leader, and how I was communicating in high stakes situations. So I started asking better questions. How do I stay calm when the stakes are high? How do I lead effectively when I'm being pulled in multiple directions? How do I show up with clarity and authority consistently? That's when I started diving into research. I studied high performing leaders, the ones who walk into a room with calm, commanding presence and consistently deliver results under pressure. I learned the models and principles that actually drive performance and started applying them in my own role with my team, with my peers, across the organization. And people started to notice. Over time, I became the go to person for this kind of thinking and leadership. And that led me to coaching. In 2018, I started working with leaders and professionals more formally. I became an ICF certified coach and went on to study neuroscience and psychology at King's College London. And that's really when everything came together. And that's actually when Neurohack Coaching was born. What I started to notice, both in my own experience and working with other leaders, is that most leaders at this level are already performing well. They are delivering results, but they're making too many decisions without enough clarity. They're constantly context switching. They're mentally overloaded. And often they're not showing up with the level of influence or authority they actually need. And at this level, performance isn't enough anymore. Progression comes from how clearly you think, how effectively you make decisions, and how you show up in high stakes moments. And this is where most leaders get stuck, not because they lack capability, but because their thinking hasn't evolved with the demands of the role. And that's exactly what the cognitive edge framework is designed to solve. And this is how the cognitive edge framework works in practice. It's a simple but powerful model made up of 5 phases designed to systematically upgrade how you think, decide, and lead. So, phase one is deconstruct. This is where we identify what's actually limiting your performance. For example, many leaders realize they're too involved in day to day decisions and not delegating effectively, which keeps them stuck in execution instead of operating strategically. Then phase two is reframe. This is about upgrading how you interpret pressure and complexity. So instead of seeing a high stakes meeting as something to get through, you start using it as an opportunity to influence and lead. Phase three is design. This is where we build how you operate as a leader. That could be creating a clear decision-making framework, delegating more effectively to your team, or maybe addressing the key gaps in your leadership operating model. Phase four is execute. This is where it gets applied in real time. So the gaps we've identified, we start working on them directly in your day-to-day leadership. For example, that might be how you run meetings, how you communicate decisions, or how you delegate more effectively in the moment, or maybe even creating a strategy of showing up to a board meeting with clarity and control instead of second guessing or over explaining. And finally, phase five is integrate. This is where everything comes together. What we've built through design and execution becomes your blueprint for how you operate as a leader. So instead of thinking about it consciously, it becomes your default, your operating system for how you think, decide, and lead under pressure. And the goal here isn't just insight, it's to create a fundamental shift in how you operate so high performance becomes natural and sustainable. And you have a clear blueprint you can rely on and refine across different situations. And this isn't just a framework in theory. It's something I've applied with hundreds of leaders in real environments and across very different roles and challenges. And the feedback is often very consistent. Leaders talk about gaining a level of clarity they don't have before, being able to step back and think more strategically instead of constantly reacting. They make better decisions faster and with more confidence. They communicate more clearly with stronger presence and authority in senior conversations. And ultimately, they start showing up in a way that feels far more intentional and far less reactive, which is where you start to see real shifts, not just in how you feel, but in how you lead and the results you drive. So, if this resonates, there are a couple of ways we can work together. The first is a longer term partnership. This is for leaders who want ongoing support, someone in their corner to help them think clearly, make better decisions, and navigate complex challenges in real time. It's flexible with no long term commitment because the focus is really on building mastery in how you think and lead. The second option is focused intensive. This is for when there's a specific area you want to strengthen, whether that's executive presence, decision making under pressure, strategic clarity, or managing cognitive overload. The goal here is a clear, measurable shift in that capability over a short period of time. And whether it's a long term or a focus intensive partnership, the outcome is the same: clearer thinking, stronger decisions, and the ability to lead with confidence and authority without the constant pressure. So, thank you for watching. If this resonates, the next step is simply a conversation. We look at where you are, where you want to get to, and whether this is the right fit. And if it is, we'll define the best way to move forward. And if not, you'll still leave with a much clearer way of thinking about your leadership and performance. So, hopefully, speak soon. Thank you.